Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of BizapaloozaChat. I am your host, Ivana Taylor, and today's BizapaloozaChat is sponsored by our friends at the Canon Maxify line of printers. So today's show is all about planning, why we do it, why we don't, why we should, and maybe how to get motivated around it. But as they say, if it were that easy, everyone would be doing it. And so, as always, to get all my answers to all my questions, I actually went to my Canon fellow mentor, Tim Berry, colleague and friend. Hello, Tim.
Hello, Ivana. It's so nice. I'm so glad you do this. What a kick. So happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you. So for our audience, what you may not know is that I have been a Tim Berry fan for Tim, weren't we just talking about the years? I'm just going to say the year. I'm just going to say it.
Go ahead.
1987.
Yeah.
19.
Yep.
So I've been a Tim Berry fan since 1987. I didn't know who Tim Berry was. I only knew that there was a mastermind behind this Palo Alto market planning software that I had ordered that made my life so much easier. And imagine just the sheer, what do they call that? Small biz crush? Excitement when I actually got to meet Tim Berry and be in relationship with him, which was really, really awesome. So to that end, I want to tell you all that you can follow along the chat, get on Twitter, in the search box, type in hashtag BizapaloozaChat. There will be questions. There will be answers. Tim and I will be chatting here. You can follow along. What I do is I let the video run, right? Because this is about as exciting as it gets. Here I am. There is Tim. And we're just going to be talking, right? So the fun thing to do is to keep that window open, listen to us chat, watch your Twitter stream, ask us questions, answer questions. We'll be getting to all of you. And with that, I'm going to ask Tim a question. Okay, all you people, are you ready? So Tim, recently in one of my streams, I saw that you wrote an article called 50 Years of Progress. And in some ways, it's like sort of a planning message or didn't planning message, or I don't know what what were you thinking? Tell us about this article. Why did you plan to write it? What was going on in your head?
Why do you choose that one? I try so hard to be only businesslike and not human. And every so often, the human just wells up and I can't stand it. The 50 years was, damn it, looking at the world today. Damn it, I remember smart people in the 60s were saying, oh my God, we're going to spoil our planet. Rachel Carson published The Silent Spring in 1964, warning us that if we're not careful, we're going to kill our planet. So that's one, and it bugs me that, oh, they were so right. And then the 70s, 80s, the Sierra, and time goes on, and damn, what's the satisfaction of saying, well, they were right? So that's one. And then another one that I remember when we were college kids in the late 60s and hoping to change the world, there were really smart people who were saying, hey, the biggest threat to long-term world peace and status quo is inequality in the distribution of wealth. This is a real problem. We have rich nations and poor nations. And if we want to keep the status quo for those of us who are in the rich nations, we had damn well better worry about sharing better, or else we're going to create huge disruptions. Well, damn, same thing. It was clear 50 years ago, and we've done nothing. And then the third of those, there were four of those, was about racism, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And we thought, a lot of the country thought, okay, let's end this. This isn't right. That's something from a century ago. Let's end this. Let's end racism in the United States. We thought we could, and we even elected Barack Obama, and I was sort of thinking, wow, we've made so much progress, but look at recent events. And there we are again, and I hate people killing cops, and I hate people killing unarmed young black men. I mean, you hate them both. Why does it have to be either or? So that's the third. And the fourth was, of course, women, the glass ceiling. My mom read Betty Friedan in 1962, and it was women's liberation and equality for women. And I thought I was getting complacent because we've made huge progress, but still suddenly you run into that 6% of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 are women. And I think it's 11% of partners in venture capital are women, and things like that is still not equal. So there's my 50 years post. It's very much unlike me.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because one of the things that stood out for me was that the people that you talked about 50 years ago, I guess, were trend spotters, right? It takes a certain something to look into the future and to spot a trend and to say something about it. The whole thing just really spoke to the whole idea of business planning, not business planning. I don't know. It said something. What do you see as the relationship there?
There's the whole process for me of business planning does relate to looking forward. And I've said on business planning that one of the things I really like about business planning is it's like telling stories and in the next breath, setting specific steps to make them come true. Here's what I want to happen with my business, and don't leave it there. Go into, and here specifically is what needs to happen milestone by milestone, responsibility by concrete stuff. So we go from the blue sky, here's the vision, to specifically how do I do it? And there's a third phase to that too, is you don't just set it, lay it out and set it. You then realize that we're humans. Everything we do takes going back and doing it and checking. And, you know, if we're going to lose weight or get fit or whatever we do, we're going to build a business. You lay it out, you set the vision, you set the steps, and then there's this ongoing process of managing. Checking back, what are the metrics, plan versus actual, how are we doing, constant revise, constant check where we are, and it's like steering. It's all sorts of small changes.
So I'm going to transition.
And that's cool. I hadn't thought of that. I feel better about my sort of grumpy rant about the state of the world because you've related it to the main theme of business planning. So big kudos to you for that.
It is. It's right. It's planning. A friend of mine used the phrase for the life of your business and the business of your life. And so many small business owners have those two kind of intertwined. So in that same frame of mind, so we talked about, you know, the big state of the world and the level of planning or not planning that's going on. I think it's really fascinating that you've had a really diverse career. And I've asked the folks on Twitter, I put out the question, which is, are you a planner or are you more spontaneous? What's one good thing and one bad thing about both? My question for you, Mr. Tim, is you've had a very diverse career. And considering that your expertise is in planning, did you plan this career? How did you craft the business of your life?
I love the paradox, and that's because when we divide the world into planners versus intuitive, reality isn't like that. We plan, I think, because it's part of trying to influence the future and dream. But I like to think that part of that whole thing is reacting to reality. Business plans are always wrong. You know, our dreams don't ever just come true with a magic Aladdin's lamp and poof, there it is. Dreams come true in 1,000 little actions and small decisions that you make along the way. And reality doesn't give us status quo or static as this happens. You have to keep reacting. So yeah, I've had several careers. I was a foreign correspondent in Latin America for 10 years with Business Week and Financial Times and so on. And I was consulting to computer companies, teaching their dealers to do business planning. And then I came up with software and created the software company. And Now, happily, I still own Palo Alto Software, me and my family. We don't have outside investors, but I don't do the day-to-day. It's very well run by a management team. And I'm now doing a lot of blogging, writing, stuff that I really like. Still about planning, because I believe it's a vision that's important for the world. I believe in it.
So you feel that that's the thread that runs through everything, for everything from being a correspondent all the way to creating and writing software?
But I don't want to, it would be pure BS if I pretended that was all planned. No, I was looking at what is the next step and then sort of revising. I started adult life married before, we're still married, but we were married before we graduated. And I was going to be a poet, I thought, at the time I graduated in literature. That became crazy. See, there's where the plan versus actual. What the hell? What do you mean? That's crazy. So I became a journalist because it was writing and it was sort of related. So there was, and then journalism after a while, I got into business writing and discovered that doing business might be more interesting than writing about it. So the next step was Stanford accepted me to do the MBA after 10 years of journalism. And then I learned about business planning and entrepreneurship. And it was, there's a lot of keeping, like in a business plan, your horizon. You're aware of the long-term goals and you set your steps to get there, but you have to be very proactive about changing reality so that you make adjustments and you keep the main directions going. There's that, that's full of paradox. I mean, the worst of it is, do I change the plan or do I stick to the plan because I need consistency to execute this strategy? There's no real answer to that. That's why the people do planning.
Well, see, that kind of brings me to our next question, right? So the question I asked all the Twitter sphere out there, all you Twitter folks, was, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of business planning? So Tim, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say business planning?
I think of steering. I think business planning is a tool. And I like the metaphor of steering because if you think about it, even in the boring straight interstates down the valleys or in the Midwest where there aren't curves and mountains, you're still constantly changing. And in steering, you have your destination. Ideally, you have real-time information about traffic and weather and such. Your destination doesn't normally change unless there's something drastic, but you're making constant corrections because even on a straight highway, you have to mind the wheel. And then with real-time information, you may be making intermediate-sized corrections and keeping the long-term in mind while doing. So that's, to me, I hate the fact that the business plan has a bad name. The business plan often makes people think, oh, this is horrible. It's a term, I don't want to do it. But for me, business planning is lean, it's simple, it's interactive, and it's constantly revising itself.
I think that's great. So I want to read some of the tweets that have come through. When I asked the question if you were a planner or if you were more spontaneous, Anya Kerr says she's a planner and she feels she can fit more activities in her calendar and prioritize on what's important when she's planning. And Think Tank says, when I say business plan, they think of having a goal and putting the measures and tactics in place to achieve it. When I think of business plan, I think of being accountable, and I don't like it, Tim. The reason I have my own business is so that I don't have to be accountable to anyone but me. And I think, you know, let's talk a little bit about that. Why are folks so afraid of business planning? I mean, what's going on there?
It's the crystal ball and chain. And that's a phrase that I came up with in a time in my career when I was very heavily involved with larger management teams in Apple Computer. I was consultant, I was never employed, but I was there every day for several years. And what I saw as we introduced good planning process, I worked with the Latin America group and then the Apple Pacific and then Apple Japan in rapid succession. I developed this crystal ball and chain idea because I could see middle managers early on resenting, worrying, fearing business planning because they felt like somebody was trying to get them on record with facts, that metrics that would be used against them. And that, I think, is a function of office politics. I coined that phrase because I saw that sense of, no, if I put it down, then you're going to hold it against me, and you might be just collecting data to fire me. And I use the phrase in some presentations with management to point out that we need to make sure this doesn't happen. And the way we do it with planning in groups is the leadership shows very early on that this process is collaborative. And so the fact that you say you're going to do the trade show in April doesn't mean you're going to be fired if you don't. It does mean that in February's meeting, you say, I think I'm going to change that and put funds elsewhere because it turns out they're not organizing it very well this year. And it's not as good an idea right now as it seemed last October. So that's collaboration. That's bringing things up. And that kind of accountability goes to collaboration and everybody wins, but people do fear it. I mean, that's
fear it. There's no doubt about it. I probably count myself, and so one of those people that fear it. But I have a bigger question for you. Why don't we get what we want from our businesses? That's a little bit of a broader question. I'm going to pose it to our folks on the chat as well. Why don't we get what we want from our businesses, right? Because people are forever, I don't even know if I'm jumping ahead with my question, right? Because the most popular complaint is, I just saw an email, Tim, says, Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. I thought that was awesome, right?
Yeah, I'm totally on that page. That's why I say steering and plan. It's a whole process. It's not just a stupid plan. And let's sort of as an aside before we go any further.
Sure.
There is no virtue in sticking to a plan just to stick to a plan. It's never a good idea. And we have a whole generation from the 70s and 80s that thought because there was a plan, you were supposed to stick to it. This is 2016. The plan is there to help manage the change. So that's an aside. But where were we?
I was asking you, why is it that we're not getting what we want from our businesses? And of course, the basic answer is because we don't plan, but we just got done saying that things change, right? But it's just the most common complaint I hear. One I hear is, I don't have enough customers, I don't have enough money, I'm not making enough money, and so on and so forth, right? I mean, so
I'm going to venture a guess. It's just a wild guess because I get this. This is a problem, and I've suffered it too. My wild guess is that really getting things done takes keeping the long term in mind while dealing with the short term and not getting lost in urgent and therefore losing important, and being able to pull back and manage the steps to create long-term execution instead of getting just lost in the short term. You need both. If you're just doing the long term, you're just dreaming. So you need the whole continuum from here are the long-term goals, here are the short-term problems, and here are the intermediates. I love the concept of milestones.
mm-hmm.
I want to launch the next version of the website in October. So I have specific things to work with. If I don't get there until November, well, you mentioned accountability. I try to generate accountability for myself. I try to manage myself so that things don't slip. That's part of the planning process too.
I'm answering my question there.
My guess about why people don't get what they want is they need the continuum of long-term, short-term, and steps, and they need to keep going back over and staying on track. We get distracted.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's really what keeps it going. All right, so I don't know. I'm going to ask the folks this over on the chat, but I'm kind of curious. Complete the sentence. I'd love my business planning if only. I would love or do business planning if only. Why are you laughing?
Well, because
You've heard this answer. I'm sure you have tons of
I'm
these.
laughing because that's why I've switched a lot of my emphasis over to lean business planning, because the right kind of business planning now for 2016 needs to be simpler and easier. Just lists and tables, the whole traditional business plan where you sweat the summary and you have the descriptions, and it's the big thing that reminds you of the term paper in Mrs. Elliott's class junior year in high school. You know, that's obsolete, except for the subset minority of businesses that specifically need it because of a bank loan or investment. For the vast majority of us, keep it lean. I'm smiling because you keep the plan simple, because it's going to change. And you do only as much as you'll use for your own management. You do bullet points, you do lists and tables, and you manage that to help you keep your business going in the right direction and to keep changing, because you have to keep changing.
I think that's the thing that I was going to say. It's got the idea of doing the research, the idea of collecting everything only to have it change, or only for you to steer away from what you thought was right. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I love this idea. I mean, I've been running a one-page plan for a long time. And
I would add the addition to the one-page plan, I would add just beyond that, milestones, metrics, a list of assumptions. And I would say that to run any business well, you need to project sales and spending and cash flow. So the one page is like the strategy and tactics. And then I'd call that a lean plan, and there's no scary text there. There's no text editing. It's just stuff you're going to use.
Exactly.
But I mean, I've learned this the hard way. First, I learned cash flow in business school when it was a really intriguing collection of numbers. And for a literature major, and I wanted to be a poet, I really liked numbers, surprisingly. So I learned cash flow in business school, but then I learned it with Palo Alto Software when our sales tripled in 1 year. And oh shit, that cash flow stuff that they taught me, oh, that really matters, you know?
Yes.
It was all theoretical until suddenly you're celebrating sales and profits are huge. It's wonderful, but you can't make payroll. You know, I'm like, wait, what? That's where I learned the importance of cash flow. And I can't let planning go without saying, plan your cash, you know? It's so important.
Plan your cash. I just wrote that down to share. That's a tweetable.
Yeah. Keep it tweetable. Plan your cash.
I gotta make sure I acknowledge some of our guests, right? Yes. Anna says a bunch of things, right? Anna says, if I could only see, that's not what she says, if I could only see the question she's trying to answer.
It can be wrong strategy or wrong execution is an Anna one that I really like, because that's a key question that keeps coming up. That no virtue in, do we execute consistency or do we change and pivot? It's that there's no algorithm, there's no business school formula that can tell you which to choose. That's
exactly. I think that's great. And Questions Consulting says, I'd love business planning if only everyone, oh my gosh, it's going fast. And now it's, what's the first thing?
Only everyone else in the company would understand its importance.
There you go. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, frustration.
Yeah, have you seen that happen before?
Yes, and my answer to that is milestones and metrics are shared among peers. So in the regular planning sessions, they're going to come up. And if you put in the concrete specifics, then it creates accountability and commitment, because people will know then that they're going to have to answer to their peers when the next plan versus actual thing comes up. And hey, you were going to do 8 seminars and you only did 4, you know, and you were going to generate 1,000 leads and you only generated 200. That kind of accountability makes people care about planning.
So I
let's
think that's true.
let's tweetize that. The tweet for that is the planning builds accountability through metrics, which generates caring. Yeah, something like that. You can put that better.
I think that's good. Well, and the important thing is, at least the part that I resonate with, why is it not tweeting? Tweet at 2:45. That's not right. How about tweet now? Hold on a minute. I'm having a technical issue. You're going to get your question answered, Questions Consulting, except that it's only going to pop up at 2:45, which is very strange.
Can I do a quick tweet for Q?
Yes. Tweet away. While you do that, I'm going to talk about what Questions Consulting said, which I think is really important, and what you said, which was that metrics are important, but I think it has to be metrics that really matter, and metrics that maybe you decide on as a team, instead of having metrics thrown at you and you're like, why am I tracking this? This is the stupidest thing. It's not going to tell us what we want to know. So I think that there's an element there of agreeing on metrics that's really, really important.
Okay, I've got an A6, keep it simple, strategy, tactics, milestones, metrics, assumptions, and projected sales, spending, cash. There. Okay.
I love that.
Okay.
And there's Glenda. Hey, Glenda. Glenda was here before. She says she's spontaneous and a planner. I build routines which give me freedom to fly off the rails. You know what?
I love that.
I love that, because I think, and you know what does that is, and you know what I've been using, Tim, is what's his name's? Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed now. The name has left me. The 3 words. Chris Brogan. He uses his 3 words for planning his year, right? And I love that principle where you choose 3 words and you let those drive your choices and your flexibility. They're like strategic words, right? So I've used words like, actually this year I'm using words like fun and ease. So it's got to be easy. It's got to be fun. So that helps me make decisions on clients, automation, technology, those kinds of things. And that allows me to do what Glenda's talking about, this ability to be structured and at the same time have some flexibility.
Cool.
Oh, Donna Cravata's here. Oh, she's awesome. She is awesome. She does a lot of social media planning, right? Okay, so you talked a little bit about this. Let's ask the folks on Twitter and let's get your specific answers, because I think this is a tweetable moment. I'm going to let you have time to tweet it. And that is, what are the specific metrics? You mentioned cash flow. Let's give that answer to folks. I'm going to give the question here. There goes the question. So you'll catch it here in a minute.
So I get the right number. What is that? Is that Q7?
It is 7. It was question 7. What are some basic metrics every small business owner should track daily, weekly, monthly? Let's talk about that. I'll try to grab them as you're saying them.
Okay. Metrics. I'm typing them though. Metrics.
Okay. You can do that.
Obviously the dollars, but whatever else drives your biz. Let's see. Calls, tweets, trips, minutes per call.
Oh, those are good.
Launch it, seminars, etc. Oops, no, I can't get, that's as much as I can get. Okay, send tweet, there we go.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yay.
Cool.
So you listed some things that I think were very interesting there.
Well, see,
dollars. Whatever else drives your business? Calls, tweets, trips, minutes per call, seminars. All right, you're gonna. I love. Yeah, we all know about the dollars and the cash flow. Blah blah blah.
well, see, the people in the business, what we're after is accountability is best through objective numbers. You don't want, in a group, you don't want to be evaluated solely by whether your boss subjectively thinks you're doing a good job. Most people want numbers that they can see. They want a score so that they have their win-loss record or their score, aside from whether the boss likes them or not or whatever. And maybe the boss is a great objective supervisor, maybe not. If I have my score, so if I'm responsible for Twitter, then maybe it's retweets and follows or whatever. If I'm a tech support person in software, how many calls have I taken, how many minutes per call? And of course, Palo Alto Software and all serious software companies get rating systems later on for rate the calls and stuff like that. So people get their numbers, you know. You're in charge of a marketing program that's seminar driven. Well, how many seminars, how many leads came from the seminar? You're looking, something that was said earlier in the tweet is you're looking for clues to, is your strategy the problem or was it just not executed? And those metrics are going to help you see whether or not you're executing strategy. We had one that was long-term, but in a software company that has like, more than a dozen programmers full-time, it would be something they'd see over time, but we measure how many support incidents per 1,000 serial numbers sold. And then when we went SaaS, it's how many support incidents per 1,000 subscribers, with the assumption being that you who do the code, you're doing a better job if there are fewer support incidents, because support incidents is where people have problems.
I love that. And there's ways, yes, exactly. And there's ways to predict these things and help you predict like how your business is going to do. One of the things, you know, Mike Michalowicz from Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, he actually had a software company and they were able to predict exactly like you said. They were tracking calls per day. How many calls came into the office? And he said that by understanding and knowing what the pattern was, he could predict what sales were going to do, whether they were going to go up or whether they were going to go down.
It's a perfect example. So it's a sales driver, but it also puts somebody who's responsible for generating the calls into a system where they can manage their own metrics and they can go in the morning and how did I do yesterday? Oh, good. This is good. I'm inspired. Or, oh, no, this is bad. I better do. You know, that's owning your own metrics. And
Correct.
ultimately, that's a key to accountability and moving forward in the business. You know, think of the line chart, because ultimately, whatever the metric is, you guess it right at the beginning, but we're doing monthly plan versus actual. So you very quickly generate a line chart. If it's incidents per 1,000 subscribers in a SaaS business, over time, you have the line of what it is. Is it going up? Is it going down? And you predict the future looking at the past and trying to figure out you're going to do better or worse or whatever. Those line charts, any given metric can become a measure for accountability if you just track it over time, you know.
What are some of the more unusual metrics that you've seen people tracking?
Oh, shoot. Well, I would have said that incidents per serial number per 1,000 subscribers. I remember seminars was a good one, and that one that wasn't intuitive. And you look for, with people who are doing sales support, they're not selling exactly. They're helping customers find serial numbers and so on. Then we had how many calls handled, how many incidents closed, and minutes per call, because you want people to get to the point and solve the problem and not take too long. But no, give me a C minus for creativity on that one.
Well, you know what? I think that's where people really struggle with. They don't
well, see,
know exactly
it's so specific to your business. Every one I mention is specific to the software business that I built.
Okay, so I know what I want to ask. I had this question jumping around and it wasn't solidified. I'm going to ask it now, right? So the things you say you track should be related somehow to your goals, right? I think you'd said that before, but I want to talk about it some more. So let's say, for example, if my goal is to get as many people as possible to engage with me, right? Then I would, one of the things I track, which is very unusual, right, is I like to see a tweet conversation get very long. So you know how you can click on in reply and you can see it get really long. That's something I track.
Yes, and I love the point that you want to have it relate to goals. And think of a business. You have a one-person business. You can still see the various elements of it. Or think about a management team in a small business where there are 4 or 5 people. They have different goals. What are the goals that apply to somebody who's doing the books and minding the cash flow? The goal is that there's always cash in them. You know, it's harder for some than others, but you can be very creative. Keep in mind that those people who you are charging with responsibility, they want ways that they can be measured objectively, that they can see their progress. It's the won-loss record. It's the score. Then I control it. You know, if there was a time when my focus was on blog subscribers. Well, there's a metric that you could see every day, and you could, as it grew, it made me happy, and I get into the office every morning. You know, there's so many opportunities for specific to your function. Here's your metric, you know.
That's fascinating, right? And I think you're right. I think the metric has to be something that you can get excited about, that you have control over.
Control, yes. That it's up to you, and that's a key to a winning metric. Is somebody is just imagine the person in the morning looking at the metric, and are they happy or sad, and does that inspire them? Are they worried that their boss is going to see it? If they don't have control, then responsibility sort of fades. You know, you want accountability in any organization. It has to be one-on-one. There's one person responsible for this. If there's 3, then it's fuzzy, you know.
Exactly.
No metrics. It has to be this person is responsible.
Okay, so next question I have that I'm going to ask you, and I want to know from the folks out there, what are the best tools out there for business planning haters? You don't like business planning, and you want to do lean planning, for example. Are there tools out there that'll help us do that?
Well, bias alert, live plan.
I love live plan.
Well, but I mean, it's not fair. I mean, that's the first thing. I do believe in live plan and live with live plan, and it's a lot of my work there. So I have to say that first.
What is it that makes live plan? Well, first of all, what are the other options that somebody would have? Let's kind of talk about that. If you wanted to implement a lean business plan, listen to me. Where is my book? Here is my book.
Yeah.
Here's my copy of the book.
Yes. And that's at leanplan.com, by the way.
Leanplan.com. So let's say you have this book, and I don't know if other people, I just want to show you people something. Little book.
It's lean.
It's lean, and it's pretty big writing, right? So it is pretty lean. So if you got the book and you were going to be implementing it, what are some tools that you could use? And it could be like spreadsheet. It could be anything. Just take us through the list.
You could do that with a spreadsheet and a word processor. You would have a list of bullet points for strategy, bullet points for tactics, and you'd compare them. You'd see that the tactics match the strategy. That's fairly important. Then you'd have a list of milestones, metrics, assumptions, and then you have projected sales, spending, and cash flow, and you're done. You're done. That's what that little lean book says. Whether you use live plan or not, that's really the core of it. It also says do only what you're going to use. So most of us need planning to run our businesses better, not to show outsiders. So skip all that stuff about the summaries and the text Notice also, I didn't say market analysis.
I know. What's up with that?
Because you have to know your market. Absolutely. To do your strategy and tactics. Your target market is part of that. But in the real world, as business owners, you don't turn in a work for a professor to grade. You're not going for investors. You don't really have business use for the scary market research that 20 years ago people said was part of a business plan. You know your business. And if you don't know your business, then that's another problem, and go know your business and talk to people or whatever. But for lean business planning, I'm talking to all of us, me included, who are business owners. We know our people. We need to keep track of what we're going to do. Tactics and strategy incorporate marketing strategy, but we don't have to prove it. And I don't care if there's 22 million businesses that don't have employees in the United States, or 25 or 15 million. There's a whole bunch of them. There's way more than I need to do my business. So I think the market is understanding the story of the need and why people buy from me and things like that. You have to know that. But a couple bullet points in your plan reminding yourself about who your market is, that's a perfect example of why people fear business planning too much. Market research is something academic or for investors, and you don't always need it. You almost never need it if you know your market.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. There's inside of, let's say, my one-page plan or anything that I'm doing that's very, very simple, even things I do with clients, especially what I call Main Street business owners, probably the biggest section, and I'm kind of curious to see what you think about that. To me, 80% of success is really, really understanding that ideal customer, like whether you want to call that your market research or your market assessment or whatever. But it's like, what I find is they talk a lot about industry and these generalities, but I don't think they dig down deep enough into the people who are making the buying decision. That's the kind of stuff I would want to see. And those kinds of things can change over time, don't you think?
I do. I think for everything has to change over time, but actually right very much in sync with what you just said, I have included in the Lean Business Planning book the essential market story. And I say that's key to everybody. Understand, and your essential market story is like writing short stories. It's almost like writing fiction. Your essential market story is, here's a person, and you imagine this person, gender, economic status, education, media, whatever. Here's a person with a problem. Here's how I solve that problem, and here's how that person finds me and why they're happy with me. It's a story. HavePresence.com, a social media consulting that I do with my daughter. The story is, for small business owners, you want social media, but you don't have time to do it. You're running a business. So HavePresence.com won't tell you how to do your strategy. It will echo your strategy in consistent social media posting. There's a story about a need and a solution. That's core to understanding your business. And I think the story, you don't need to say how many small business owners there are. We know that there's millions. I don't care if it's 5 or 15 millions. It's a lot of them. You have to understand that transaction, though. Why are people buying?
You've said this at least twice before, but this third time, I think I got it. And I'm wondering if maybe you need to say it like 2 or 5 more times for other people to get it. Because you and I have been friends for a while, and I know I've heard you say this before, but for some reason it landed special today. And that is, it's a story again, right? So just kind of say that little thing again, the story of your business, and then how you said, this is the customer, they have a problem, and so on and so forth.
Your essential story is about a person or an organization struggling to solve a problem, to find something that solves their problem, how they find you and how you solve their problem. And if you want to embellish, you can do it. There's a whole lot, but you can go from there. But that's the essential story. You know, from there, you can talk about why are you different? You can talk about how they find you and what you do for that. I mean, you can build a whole business plan from that story. And
that's
by the way,
so important.
You mentioned the one-page business plan. There's so many different ways to do lean business planning. Yes, I like live plan, use the pitch page and whatever, but also the one-page business plan, add milestones, metrics, assumptions, sales, spending, and cash, and you've got a lean business plan. A lot of people like the lean business canvas, which is sort of a shortcut to here's how the business works. Do the lean business canvas and add milestones, metrics, assumptions, sales, spending, and cash flow, and you have a lean business plan. The core is about focus, you know, trying to please a specific subset of people, not everybody. That's what drives the business. That's the story, that's strategy and tactics, that's the one-page business plan, that's the lean business canvas, that's the core. But to run a business well, you need those other things, and then you need to review and revise constantly.
I gotcha. Okay. Oh, that was I know, my thing does that too sometimes.
Yeah, so I silenced the cell, but I forget my Mac and my iPhone, they're all together.
Connected, I know, mine have that too. Mine have that too. You know what? One of the things that we were just talking about, the different ways of putting a business plan together, which could be a one-page plan, which could be one of the things I did, Tim, that I thought was really interesting. And I don't know if it followed this story of the plan. I'm very excited about that today for some reason. I did a visual plan where we put the goal in the middle and just did like a mind map, right? We put the goal in the middle, and then, you know, every spoke was how you were going to achieve the goal. Have you ever seen that done before?
Yeah, I've used mind map, and it's, you know, what I think we need to acknowledge here is people are different, and people have different ways of approaching these things. And as I advocate business planning, I'm trying to avoid saying, do it my way. I want to accommodate doing it the way that works for you. So in my consulting years with business planning in larger organizations, there was one person I remember in particular who did the mind map so big that he would take like 64 pieces of paper taped together to show it. Just, you know, and some people like the lean canvas or the one page. I like the live plan pitch or just bullet points. What I want everybody to understand is if you just take that step further from there into writing some other stuff down that you can track, you'll find it helps you enormously get what you want from your business.
Now, I know you've said this number before. Maybe I'll even ask the folks. This is a spontaneous Twitter question, which is, you probably know these statistics, and maybe I've heard you say them before. Of the businesses that are successful, how many of them do business planning, right?
Oh, yeah. We have a study that shows that 40-some%, and the 40-some% that do rigorous business planning are way more likely. I'd have to go look that study. I don't have those numbers memorized, but the University of Oregon did a control blind, whatever they call it, a discipline study on this that showed not that a huge majority of companies do rigorous business plans, but the ones that do planning process have a really significantly higher chance of success. And they define the business planning process as actually going to the step of reviewing plan versus actual regularly and having that influence your management. And it was an enormous pop up in the likelihood of success. It's on my blog somewhere, but I'm not going to.
Simply, this is something that's really, really interesting. So are you saying, see if I got this correct, are you saying that simply going through the process of business planning improves your results?
Yes. Yes.
That matches, it's fascinating. That matches the research that came out that the folks over at Question Pro did, the survey software. They did some research and they found that simply doing customer satisfaction, just doing the survey, that's it, not implementing it, nothing, just doing the survey, increases customer satisfaction and grows sales.
I believe it. Yeah, of course. Just doing a sales forecast and following up on it will increase management. And I'll try to make it a quick story, but the anecdotal evidence for me was so powerful. I had a period in the early 2000s where I did workshops for business owners sponsored by a couple different sponsors in 14 countries. I did like 26 workshops, each of them with 20 or 30 business owners over a period of 2 or 3 years. And it was fascinating to me. After the third or fourth, I discovered a pattern that repeated itself throughout that whole, with all those workshops. In the first half hour, I would find out who was doing what I called good business planning process in the audience. I'd be looking at 20 or 30 business owners, and consistently over that data set, I would always find about 10% of them would raise their hands, and I'd ask, and they actually were doing good business planning process. And over this whole period with all these workshops, over and over again, as I went through the day for examples of good business, they would be the ones who would have the examples. And when it came to numbers, how have you been growing? And when it came to satisfaction with their business, over and over again, the same ones that I would start calling on because they were doing it and you could tell would be the ones that became sort of the beacons that the others in the room started. They wanted to have lunch with them and talk with them because those were the people who were doing business well and were happy with their business and were growing. And it was, to me, consistent over the whole group of workshops. The ones that were doing planning process were doing better and they were happier with their business.
Wow. Wow. That, that there was another study, and we talked about it in one of my groups, that they said if you wanted to have a profitable business, you're simply stating profitability as a goal increases profitability. Same type of deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, we're going to wind up because we're almost done here. I'm going to ask the folks on Twitter, any questions for Tim? Because I want to give you time to jump on Twitter and check out the stream. And that way we can do that. But I think the last question I have for you, Tim, is if somebody is stuck and not really doing a great job of one-page plan or anything, what's like a good first step to get you off your bum that won't take long and that could feel good about myself?
We talked about it earlier. We've talked about 3 different things. That one is the market defining story. And if you Google that, I think that's the title. I think I've got some posts out on that.
Great.
I think it's in the market defining story. Just think that through. Another one is talking to your customers. Talk to your best customers. Hey, can I invite you to lunch? I knew a consultant who would just regularly take 2 or 3 customers out to lunch, and it was very good because she would listen. She would listen. But then you mentioned earlier, what did you say when I said also you said setting goals? When I said the sales forecast,
yes,
something else.
Oh, well, yeah, I think I even had questions about, setting. Oh, right. Setting profitability as a goal increases your chance of profitability. Mm-hmm.
And with all of this, I really want to emphasize that if you just get going with it, if nothing else, do a sales forecast and start tracking it. The way we work as humans is if you put numbers down, they represent concepts automatically. I mean, I don't have data for that. I'm just convinced that as you do a sales forecast, you're thinking about what drives sales and marketing programs, and it sort of expands. Don't put it off because you can't do the whole thing. Do a piece of it. Do the first part. Do the market defining story. Do the sales forecast. Do the milestones. Do the metrics. Do the one-page business plan. Do the lean canvas. Do the pitch page. Just get going. People are different. Some of us, I've done a whole bunch of business plans as a consultant and for some of my own ventures. I always started with the numbers. Odd as a literature major, but I would find the numbers generated the concepts. Some people start with a mission statement. I'm not big on mission statements, but market defining story. Maybe you start with a concept. People are different, right? Some people get numbers, some people get concepts. We all can benefit from planning.
Absolutely. Oh, you know, one of the things that I talk about quite a bit is getting your hands dirty with the data. Because I think a lot of folks like to import and export and, you know, do certain things, but I actually like getting hands dirty with the data, whether that has to do with, you know, just what I was actually just doing it recently. Oh, I was looking at my email list. I was cleaning my email list and I was looking at it and, you know, so on and so forth. And I went through this process where I exported it into a document. Then I started looking at it, I didn't intend to, but I was. And in that process of looking at it, I could see, oh, look at this person. I didn't know they were on my list. You know, things like, I mean, it's amazing what you see and you get these ideas. Do you have a process like that that's similar to what you do to get ideas for planning?
I love this that you suggest that you go into. What's close to that for me is sometimes when I need to take a step back, I'll go into the more mundane chores of the business. I'll go back into bookkeeping or cleaning a mailing list or something like that, because sometimes I want to be working, but I need to do less intensive.
Right.
I'll go, and then that always generates creativity comes in, I think, the play between pressing hard and letting go, you know?
Mm.
So you just said getting in the data. I will at times let go and purposely say, okay, I'm going to stop. And I don't have the luxury of now I'm going to go see a movie. I need to get things done. So I stop and I'll do something else. And there's the mindless, repetitive work that needs to be done. I find that generates sometimes a different kind of an approach, and then the creative ideas get a chance to come out, you know. You can't get great ideas when you're pushing for great ideas. You have to relax.
You have to relax. I love that. And Glenda just said on Twitter, for me, the key to analytics is gamification, good dashboards and auto reporting and visual tools. So that's a little bit of kind of what we were talking about. So Tim,
I love that. That's great.
I'm going to let you go and play on the Twitter stream because I know that there's some great comments in there that you're going to want to check out. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, Tim Barry, for sharing lean business planning with us.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ivana, for inviting me.
Oh, awesome.
So much fun.
And our guest, is it next week? It's not next week. Next week we are off. We come back on August 8th, and our guest is going to be Nolene Mariappan. She wrote a productivity book, and she is like super productive. So if you came to this one, you'll definitely want to come to the next one. I don't know if you're available, Tim. Hopefully we'll see you. Always good to chat with you.
Oh, so much fun. Thank you again.
Awesome.
I love the chat. I try always every week. Can't always make it, but I always.
That's a nice thing with these chats is there are certain chats that I mean, honestly, Tim, if I went to every chat I wanted to go to, like no work would get done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know,
optimize.
I can spend all day and all night, right?
But we should all go to this one and be with this one every Monday that it's on.
Oh, well, thank you, Tim. Absolutely. And I know if you can make it, definitely be there. Last thing I want to do is thank our sponsors, Canon Maxify, line of printers. Thank you, Canon. And thank you, Tim. And thank you, everyone on Twitter. Go do something on your lean business plan. I'm going to do that story thing. I think that's awesome.
Cool.
Cool.